The WWE Universe just witnessed the most shocking betrayal in women's wrestling history, and Raquel Rodriguez is probably still trying to figure out what hit her. Liv Morgan didn't just return, she came back with a vengeance that has completely destroyed the women's division and sent Triple H into full panic mode. But here's what's going to make your blood absolutely boil: this wasn't some random attack or typical wrestling storyline. This was a calculated assassination of trust that exposes the most toxic backstage politics in WWE history. Liv Morgan just proved that loyalty means nothing in today's WWE, and what she did to Raquel Rodriguez was so brutal, so personal, so absolutely devastating that it's going to change women's wrestling forever. Dramatic pause: if you think you saw everything on your TV screen, you're living in a fantasy world. The slap that's trending worldwide was just the tip of the iceberg. What really happened backstage involves broken promises, stolen opportunities, and backstage manipulation so dirty that WWE's own executives are questioning whether they can control what they've unleashed. Smash that like button because this story goes so deep it involves contract sabotage, creative politics, and a revenge plot that makes Game of Thrones look like a children's book. The return that nobody saw coming. Let me break down the most shocking return in modern WWE history, because Liv Morgan's comeback wasn't just a surprise, it was a masterpiece of deception that had been in the works for months while everyone in WWE management thought they had her under control. For weeks leading up to this moment, WWE had been feeding the wrestling media carefully crafted stories about Liv Morgan being difficult to work with, about creative differences, and about her needing time away to re-evaluate her priorities. Every single one of those stories was a lie designed to cover up the real reason Liv had disappeared from WWE programming. Here's what really happened: Liv Morgan had discovered something that WWE management never wanted to become public knowledge. She had uncovered evidence of systematic favoritism in the women's division, proof that certain wrestlers were receiving opportunities based on backstage politics rather than merit, and documentation of promises that were being broken to benefit Triple H's hand-picked favorites. The wrestler at the center of this conspiracy? Raquel Rodriguez. Sources close to the situation tell us that Liv had been promised a championship storyline that would establish her as the face of WWE's women's division for the next 2 years. She had been told that her loyalty to the company, her work ethic, and her connection with fans had earned her the kind of push that defines careers. Those promises were lies from day one. While Liv was being fed false hope about her future, WWE management was already planning to give those exact opportunities to Raquel Rodriguez. The storylines that Liv thought she was preparing for were being rewritten. The championship angles that she believed would elevate her career were being handed to someone else. And the worst part? Raquel knew about it the entire time. The backstage betrayal exposed the most disgusting aspect of this entire situation. Isn't just that WWE lied to Liv Morgan, it's that Raquel Rodriguez was actively participating in the deception while pretending to be Liv's friend and ally. Multiple sources inside WWE describe a months-long campaign where Raquel was feeding information about Liv's plans, attitudes, and concerns directly to Triple H and his inner circle. Every conversation Liv had with Raquel about her frustrations with booking decisions was being reported to management. Every complaint about missed opportunities was being used as evidence that Liv was difficult and not ready for major storylines. But here's where it gets absolutely sickening: Raquel wasn't just spying on Liv, she was actively sabotaging her. When Liv would pitch ideas for storylines or character development, Raquel would immediately present similar concepts to creative team members, claiming them as her own original ideas. When Liv expressed interest in specific feuds or championship opportunities, Raquel would privately lobby management to give those same opportunities to her instead. The betrayal went even deeper than professional sabotage. Raquel had been using her personal relationship with Liv to extract confidential information about Liv's contract negotiations, her family situations, and her long-term career goals. All of that information was being shared with WWE executives to help them manipulate Liv's decision-making and career choices. Raquel wasn't just stealing opportunities from Liv, one insider told us. She was systematically destroying Liv's credibility and relationships within the company while pretending to be her closest friend. It was psychological warfare disguised as friendship. The slap that shook the world when Liv Morgan's music hit and she walked out to confront Raquel Rodriguez, the entire wrestling world stopped to watch what would happen next. But nobody, and I mean nobody, was prepared for the level of raw emotion and genuine fury that Liv brought to that ring. The slap itself will go down as one of the most impactful moments in women's wrestling history, but it wasn't just the physical impact that made it special. It was the months of betrayal, manipulation, and backstage politics that led to that moment. When Liv's hand connected with Raquel's face, it represented every broken promise, every stolen opportunity, and every moment of false friendship that had brought them to that point. The sound of that slap echoed through the arena like a gunshot, but the silence that followed was even more powerful. For several seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke, and nobody seemed to breathe as the reality of what had just happened sank in. This wasn't a scripted wrestling moment, this was real emotion expressing itself through genuine confrontation. But here's what made the moment even more devastating: the look on Raquel's face wasn't surprise or anger, it was guilt. Cameras caught the exact moment when Raquel realized that Liv knew everything, that all of her backstage manipulation had been exposed, and that there was no way to explain or justify what she had done. The crowd's reaction was unlike anything WWE has seen in recent memory. Instead of the typical cheers or boos that accompany wrestling storylines, there was a mixture of shock, sympathy, and genuine emotional investment in what they were witnessing. Fans instinctively understood that they were seeing something real, something that transcended typical sports entertainment. The words that destroyed a friendship, what Liv Morgan said to Raquel Rodriguez after that slap, will be quoted and referenced for years to come, because it wasn't just a wrestling promo, it was the complete destruction of a relationship that had been built on lies and manipulation. You want to know why I've been gone, Raquel? You want to know why I disappeared from WWE programming while you got every opportunity one was promised? Liv's voice was different, lower, more controlled, but carrying an edge of betrayal that made everyone listening genuinely uncomfortable. It's because I discovered what kind of person you really are. What kind of friend steals storylines from someone they claim to care about? What kind of ally reports private conversations to management? What kind of human being destroys someone's career while pretending to support them? The personal nature of Liv's accusations created an atmosphere in the arena that felt more like a real confrontation than a wrestling segment. Fans were witnessing the complete breakdown of a relationship, and the authenticity of the emotion made it impossible to look away. Every time I trusted you with my concerns about booking, you ran straight to Triple H to use those concerns against me. Every time I shared ideas for my character, you stole them and presented them as your own. Every time I believed we were friends, you were actively working to destroy my career. The creative manipulation exposed, but Liv Morgan wasn't finished destroying Raquel Rodriguez. She had months of evidence about backstage manipulation and creative politics, and she was prepared to expose all of it on live television, regardless of the consequences to her own career. You want to know how deep this goes? The Women's Championship storyline you're currently involved in? That was written for me 6 months ago. The character development you've been praised for? Those were ideas I pitched in creative meetings that you attended as my friend. The main event opportunities you've been receiving? Those were promised to me before you decided to sabotage my career. The implications of these revelations sent shockwaves through not just the live audience but the entire wrestling industry watching at home. Liv was exposing systematic problems with WWE's creative process and providing specific examples of how backstage politics influence on-screen opportunities. Triple H and his creative team didn't choose you because you're more talented, more charismatic, or more deserving. They chose you because you were willing to betray a friend to get ahead. You proved that you'll do anything, destroy anyone, and sacrifice any relationship to advance your own career. These weren't typical wrestling accusations about being held back or deserving better treatment. These were specific, detailed allegations about corruption in WWE's decision-making process and evidence that merit-based advancement had been replaced by backstage manipulation and personal politics. The Triple H panic mode while Liv Morgan was systematically destroying Raquel Rodriguez on live television. Absolute chaos was erupting backstage as WWE management tried to figure out how to control a situation that had completely spiraled beyond their authority. Sources tell us that Triple H was in emergency meetings with legal teams, creative writers, and network executives trying to determine whether they should cut Liv's microphone, send security to the ring, or let the confrontation play out naturally. The problem was that every option they considered would have made WWE look either weak or corrupt. The revelation that creative storylines had been reassigned based on backstage manipulation created immediate legal concerns. If Liv had documentation proving that she was promised specific opportunities that were then given to someone else based on personal politics rather than creative merit, WWE could face breach of contract claims and discrimination lawsuits. But the bigger problem was that Liv's accusations were being made on live television to millions of viewers. Even if WWE wanted to suppress the story or control the narrative, the damage was already done. Social media was exploding with reactions, wrestling journalists were scrambling to verify Liv's claims, and fans were demanding answers about corruption in WWE's creative process. Nobody in management saw this coming, one insider told us. They thought they had Liv controlled, that she would accept their version of events and move on quietly. Instead, she came back with evidence, with specific details, and with the willingness to destroy her own career if necessary to expose what had been done to her. The Rodriguez defense that failed Raquel Rodriguez's attempt to respond to Liv's accusations only made the situation worse, because her explanations sounded exactly like what they were, desperate attempts to justify behavior that couldn't be justified. Liv, you don't understand how this business works, Raquel started, but even her tone revealed that she knew she had been caught. Sometimes opportunities come up that weren't originally planned, and management has to make decisions based on what's best for the company. The crowd's reaction to this corporate speak response was immediate and brutal. Fans started booing not because they were playing their part in a wrestling storyline, but because they recognized dishonesty when they heard it. Raquel was trying to use WWE's standard explanations for creative changes to justify personal betrayal. What's best for the company? Or what's best for you? Liv's response cut through Raquel's excuses like a knife. Because what's best for the company would be rewarding loyalty, keeping promises, and promoting wrestlers based on talent rather than their willingness to stab friends in the back. Raquel's attempts to explain her actions only provided Liv with more opportunities to expose specific examples of betrayal and manipulation. Every excuse Raquel offered was met with detailed evidence of how she had systematically undermined Liv's career while pretending to be her friend. "You reported our private conversations to management, Raquel. You stole my creative ideas and presented them as your own. You actively lobbied against opportunities for me while campaigning for those same opportunities for yourself. There's no way to spin that as what's best for the company." The locker room division. The confrontation between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez has created unprecedented division in WWE's women's locker room, with wrestlers being forced to choose sides in a conflict that exposes fundamental problems with the company's culture and creative process. Multiple sources describe the women's division as completely split between wrestlers who support Liv's decision to expose backstage corruption and those who believe that airing internal grievances on live television damages everyone's professional standing. The wrestlers supporting Liv see her as someone who was willing to sacrifice her own career to expose problems that affect everyone in the women's division. They view her accusations as evidence of systematic favoritism that prevents talented wrestlers from advancing based on merit alone. "Liv did what all of us have wanted to do at some point," one women's wrestler told us anonymously. "She stood up to the backstage politics and manipulation that we all have to deal with. If she gets punished for telling the truth, it just proves that everything she said was accurate." But other wrestlers are concerned that Liv's public accusations will make WWE management less likely to trust women's wrestlers with sensitive information or major storylines. They worry that the fallout from this confrontation could damage opportunities for everyone in the division. "Management is already paranoid about wrestlers going off script," another source explained. "If they think women's wrestlers can't be trusted to keep internal issues private, it's going to affect all of our careers, not just Liv's and Raquel's." The social media explosion. The reaction on social media to Liv Morgan's return and confrontation with Raquel Rodriguez has been unlike anything WWE has seen in recent years, with engagement numbers that dwarf typical wrestling content and discussions that extend far beyond the wrestling community. #Liv Morgan return has been trending worldwide for days, with fans creating detailed analyses of her accusations, sharing their own experiences with workplace betrayal, and demanding accountability from WWE management. The hashtag has generated millions of interactions and brought wrestling content to audiences who don't typically engage with sports entertainment. But the social media response isn't just about support for Liv Morgan, it's about broader frustrations with corporate culture, workplace politics, and the way talented employees are treated when they threaten established power structures. Liv's situation has resonated with people who have experienced similar betrayals in their own professional lives. The most powerful social media content has come from wrestling fans who are sharing detailed breakdowns of Liv's accusations and connecting them to broader patterns of favoritism and manipulation in WWE's booking decisions. These fan analyses are more thorough and better researched than most professional wrestling journalism, and they're reaching audiences that WWE's traditional media coverage never touches. WWE's attempts to control the social media narrative have failed completely. Every official statement from the company generates more criticism and more questions about their creative process and talent relations. The story has taken on a life of its own that extends far beyond WWE's ability to manage or contain. The industry implications. The confrontation between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez has sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling industry, with other promotions, wrestlers, and industry professionals taking note of what happened and adjusting their approaches to talent relations and creative development. Competing wrestling companies have been quick to reach out to Liv's representatives, recognizing that her willingness to challenge corruption and expose backstage politics makes her an extremely valuable free agent. Her combination of talent, authenticity, and proven drawing power makes her a priority signing for any promotion looking to elevate their women's division. The incident has also prompted discussions within the industry about creative integrity, talent rights, and the need for better protections against backstage manipulation. Liv's situation has become a case study in how not to handle talent relations and creative development. Independent wrestling promotions are using Liv's experience as a recruiting tool, arguing to potential signings that WWE's corporate culture makes it impossible for non-favored wrestlers to achieve their full potential based on merit alone. The narrative that WWE rewards backstage politics over talent has become a powerful argument for wrestlers considering their career options. The women's wrestling revolution. What Liv Morgan accomplished with her confrontation goes far beyond her personal situation with Raquel Rodriguez. She sparked a conversation about women's wrestling that could change how the entire industry approaches female talent development and creative opportunities. For years, women's wrestlers have been expected to accept whatever opportunities they're given, to be grateful for any screen time or storylines, and to never publicly question creative decisions or booking choices. Liv's willingness to expose backstage corruption and demand accountability represents a fundamental shift in how women's wrestlers view their own agency and professional rights. The authenticity of Liv's emotion and the specificity of her accusations have resonated with female wrestlers throughout the industry who have experienced similar treatment but never had the platform or courage to speak out publicly. Her confrontation has become a symbol of what's possible when wrestlers refuse to accept unfair treatment silently. The reaction from female fans has been particularly powerful, with women sharing their own experiences of workplace betrayal and expressing appreciation for seeing someone willing to fight back against systematic mistreatment. Liv's situation has connected with broader conversations about women's rights, workplace equality, and the importance of authentic representation in entertainment. The corporate response disaster. WWE's attempts to manage the fallout from Liv Morgan's confrontation have been a masterclass in corporate damage control gone wrong, with every statement, leak, and official response making the situation worse rather than better. The company's initial approach was to minimize the significance of Liv's accusations by characterizing them as typical wrestling storyline development and suggesting that fans were overreacting to standard creative processes. This response immediately backfired because it implied that WWE's creative decisions are typically based on backstage manipulation rather than talent and merit. The second approach was to leak stories about Liv's difficult behavior and unprofessional attitude to wrestling media outlets. These character assassination attempts only provided more evidence for Liv's accusations about how WWE treats wrestlers who challenge their creative decisions, making the company look petty and vindictive. WWE's legal team has reportedly advised against making any detailed public statements about the specific allegations Liv raised, but this silence has been interpreted by fans and media as confirmation that her accusations are accurate. The company finds itself in a position where they can't effectively defend themselves without admitting to the problems Liv exposed. The Raquel Rodriguez career destruction. While attention has focused primarily on Liv Morgan's explosive return and accusations, the impact on Raquel Rodriguez's career and reputation has been equally dramatic and potentially more devastating in the long term. Raquel's positioning as a rising star in WWE's women's division was built on the perception that she was a talented wrestler who had earned opportunities through hard work and natural ability. Liv's accusations have completely destroyed that narrative by revealing that Raquel's advancement was based on her willingness to betray friends and manipulate backstage situations. The damage to Raquel's reputation extends beyond just wrestling fans to include wrestlers, industry professionals, and potential future employers who now view her as someone who can't be trusted with confidential information or genuine friendships. Trust is essential in professional wrestling, and Raquel's has been completely destroyed. Fan reaction to Raquel since the confrontation has been overwhelmingly negative, with social media full of criticism about her character and questions about which of her accomplishments were legitimately earned versus obtained through manipulation. Her merchandise sales have reportedly declined significantly, and her social media engagement has become predominantly negative. More importantly for her long-term career, other wrestlers in the women's division are reportedly treating Raquel differently, with many refusing to share personal information or creative ideas with someone they now view as a potential threat to their own careers. The creative process exposed one of the most significant long-term impacts of Liv Morgan's accusations is how they've exposed fundamental problems with WWE's creative development process and raised questions about the integrity of their decision-making systems. Liv's specific claims about storylines being reassigned, ideas being stolen, and opportunities being distributed based on backstage politics rather than merit have forced WWE to confront the reality that their creative process may be corrupted by personal relationships and office politics. The revelation that wrestlers are expected to spy on each other and report private conversations to management creates a toxic work environment that inhibits creativity, destroys trust, and prevents the kind of collaboration that produces the best entertainment content. WWE's creative team is reportedly conducting internal reviews of their processes and relationships to identify other situations where similar manipulation might have occurred. The company is concerned that Liv's accusations might be just the beginning of broader revelations about corruption in their creative development. The impact on WWE's ability to attract and retain top talent is already being felt, with wrestlers questioning whether they can trust creative team members with ideas, concerns, or personal information that might be used against them in future booking decisions. The legal ramifications. While WWE hopes to handle the fallout from Liv Morgan's accusations through public relations and internal policy changes, legal experts suggest that the company may face significant litigation risks based on the specific claims she made on live television. If Liv can document that she was promised specific storylines and opportunities that were then reassigned based on factors unrelated to creative merit or business necessity, she may have grounds for breach of contract claims. The systematic nature of the manipulation she described could also support discrimination or harassment claims. The fact that Raquel Rodriguez allegedly reported private conversations and personal information to management without Liv's knowledge or consent could create additional legal exposure, particularly if any of that information was used to make adverse employment decisions. WWE's legal team is reportedly reviewing all contracts, communications, and creative documents related to both wrestlers to assess their potential liability and identify any evidence that might support Liv's claims. The company is also implementing new policies to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. The industry transformation. The long-term impact of Liv Morgan's confrontation with Raquel Rodriguez extends far beyond their personal situation to fundamental questions about how the wrestling industry operates and what standards should apply to talent relations and creative development. Other wrestling companies are using this incident as an opportunity to examine their own processes and identify areas where similar problems might exist. The industry is recognizing that the traditional approach of expecting wrestlers to accept whatever treatment they receive without question is no longer sustainable. Wrestling schools and talent development programs are incorporating discussions about professional ethics, workplace rights, and healthy relationship management into their curricula. The goal is to prepare future wrestlers for an industry that's evolving beyond its traditionally exploitative practices. The incident has also sparked conversations about unionization and collective bargaining in professional wrestling. Liv's individual situation highlights systematic problems that could potentially be addressed through organized labor representation and standardized industry practices. The ultimate betrayal. When you examine the complete picture of what happened between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, what emerges is a story that transcends typical wrestling storylines and enters the realm of genuine human drama about trust, betrayal, and the cost of ambition. Raquel's betrayal wasn't just about stealing opportunities or manipulating creative decisions, it was about systematically destroying someone who trusted her while pretending to care about her welfare. The psychological manipulation involved in maintaining a false friendship while actively sabotaging someone's career represents a level of calculated cruelty that goes far beyond typical workplace competition. Liv's decision to expose this betrayal on live television, knowing that it would likely damage her own career prospects, demonstrates a level of principle and authenticity that's rare in any industry. She chose truth over career advancement, justice over personal safety, and integrity over corporate compliance. The contrast between these two approaches to professional advancement, Raquel's manipulation versus Liv's authenticity, represents a fundamental choice about what kind of industry professional wrestling wants to be and what values it wants to promote. The final reckoning. As the wrestling world continues to process the most shocking confrontation in women's wrestling history, we're left with fundamental questions about loyalty, integrity, and the price of success in professional entertainment. Liv Morgan's slap wasn't just a physical confrontation, it was the sound of friendship dying, trust being shattered, and authentic emotion expressing itself in an industry that often struggles with both. She proved that some things, truth, integrity, genuine relationships, are more important than career advancement or corporate approval. Raquel Rodriguez learned that betraying people who trust you comes with consequences that extend far beyond immediate career benefits. Her willingness to sacrifice friendship for professional advancement has cost her not just a relationship, but her reputation, her credibility, and potentially her long-term career prospects. WWE discovered that their corporate culture of backstage manipulation and political favoritism can't survive in an era when wrestlers are willing to expose corruption publicly, regardless of the personal consequences. The company's attempts to control talent through fear and manipulation have been revealed as outdated and ultimately self-destructive. Most importantly, the wrestling industry learned that authenticity resonates with audiences in ways that scripted content never could. The genuine emotion and real consequences of Liv's confrontation created more compelling entertainment than years of carefully planned storylines and corporate-approved feuds. The slap heard around the wrestling world wasn't just about one moment of confrontation, it was about the power of truth, the importance of integrity, and the cost of betrayal in an industry that's finally learning to value authentic relationships over corporate convenience. Liv Morgan didn't just return to WWE, she returned to remind everyone that wrestling is at its best when it's real, when it matters, and when the people involved are willing to fight for something more important than just their next paycheck or their next push. The WWE Universe is in chaos, but it's the kind of chaos that comes from witnessing something genuine, something meaningful, and something that might actually change the industry for the better. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of chaos professional wrestling needs. End of script. **. If this expose of the most shocking betrayal in women's wrestling history opened your eyes to what really happened between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, smash that like button and let me know in the comments whether you think Liv was justified in exposing this backstage corruption. Subscribe for more exclusive wrestling content because this story proves that the women's division will never be the same, and we're going to keep covering every explosive development as this situation continues to evolve. **.